Every problem you've ever had, every anxious spiral, every moment of feeling stuck traces back to one single mental habit. Not your past, not your circumstances, one mechanism running on a loop right now inside your mind. The ancient seers of India identified it 3,000 years ago. Neuroscience just caught up. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. In this video, I'll show you number one, the exact mechanism the Bhagavad Gita names as the root cause of suffering, and what modern brain science shows is happening in your nervous system when that mechanism fires. Number two, how to tell the difference between pain that needs to be felt and suffering that is genuinely optional in real time while you're inside a spiral. Number three, a specific Vedic micro practice you can run in 5 minutes a day with a clear marker of what you'll notice by day seven. Let's get into it. A few years ago, I was sitting across from a man I'll call Rajan. Successful, sharp, the kind of person who reads everything and understands it immediately. He had read the Gita, the Stoics, Eckhart Tolle, done therapy. He looked at me and said, I understand all of this intellectually. I can explain it to anyone, but I still feel like I'm drowning. That sentence, but I still feel like I'm drowning, is the most common thing I hear. The diagnosis lands, the relief doesn't. This video is about closing that gap. Rajan's problem wasn't that he lacked insight, it was that he kept looking for the problem in the wrong place. The Bhagavad Gita, in the third chapter, names the mechanism directly. Krishna calls it raga and devesha. Raga is the compulsive pull toward pleasure, toward what feels good, toward what we want. Devesha is the compulsive push away from discomfort, from what we fear, from what we don't want. And Krishna is precise about this. He says these two forces are seated in the senses and that they are the great obstacles to freedom. Not your enemies, not your failures, not your past, this two-stroke engine of wanting and avoiding. Now here is where it gets interesting because this is the angle almost no one in this space connects. Neuroscience has a name for the brain network that activates when this loop fires. It's called the default mode network. The DMN is most active when you're not focused on an external task, when your mind is wandering, when you're thinking about yourself. And what does the DMN do when it runs unsupervised? It scans for threats, replays regrets, anticipates future loss, compares your current state to an imagined better state. It is functionally a raga and devesha machine. The ancient seers described the psychological experience. Brain imaging now shows the neural architecture underneath it. The Vedic term for what powers this loop is avidya, usually translated as ignorance, but not ignorance in the sense of being uninformed. Avidya is a specific kind of misidentification, the mind taking itself to be the whole of what you are. When the DMN runs the show and you have no witness to it, you are avidya in action. You believe the loop is you. You believe the wanting and the avoiding are your actual preferences, your personality, your reality. They are not. They are a program. The root cause of suffering is not your situation. It is the unexamined identification with this loop. And the reason understanding it intellectually doesn't stop the suffering is that the DMN is not a conceptual system. It is a physiological one. You cannot think your way out of a biological loop. You have to interrupt it at the level of the body, which is exactly what we will get to. Takeaway. The next time you feel anxious or stuck, ask yourself one question. Am I pulling towards something or pushing away from something right now? Just naming raga or dvesha as it fires begins to create a gap between you and the loop. This is the question I get most often, and it is the most important one. How do I know if what I'm feeling is something I need to sit with or something I'm creating on top of what's real? The Gita does not tell you to stop feeling. This is a critical misread that sends people in the wrong direction. Pain is real, loss is real, grief is real. The Gita's diagnosis is not about suppressing what arises. It's about what happens after the initial signal fires. Think of it this way. You touch a hot stove. The pain signal is immediate, honest, useful. It tells you something true about reality. That is pain. Suffering begins the moment the mind starts its commentary. Why did this happen to me? I'm always so careless. What if it scars? What will people think? This always happens. That is the raga dvesha loop activating on top of the raw signal. That is optional. Modern acceptance based therapies, specifically ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, have a clinical name for the second layer, experiential avoidance. The research is consistent. It is not the difficult emotion itself that drives anxiety, depression, and addiction. It is the effort to escape the difficult emotion. The avoidance of the experience creates more suffering than the experience would have on its own. The fear of the panic is worse than the panic. That sentence comes from a comment on a competitor video, and it is one of the most precise descriptions of Devesha I have ever read from someone who has never opened the Gita. So, how do you tell the difference in real time when you're inside the spiral? The Gita offers a diagnostic. Arjuna is in grief at the start of the text, real grief. His family is in front of him. His world is collapsing. Krishna does not tell him the grief is wrong. Krishna asks him to examine what the grief is built on, what assumptions it rests on, what story the mind has layered onto the raw experience. The practice is not suppression, it is inquiry. In real time, here is the test. Ask, is this feeling telling me something true about right now? Or is it telling me a story about the future or the past? Raw pain lives in the present. It is specific, located, honest. Suffering is almost always a narrative, a projection, a loop. It has the quality of a story being told rather than a sensation being felt. When you catch the narrative quality, you found the optional layer. You don't have to fight it, you just have to see it for what it is. Takeaway: when something difficult arises, pause and locate it physically in your body. If you can find a sensation, you are with the pain. If all you find is a story, you're inside the suffering layer and you have a choice. Every high view video in this space does what Rajan described. It delivers the diagnosis and then leaves you at the door. The common threads are full of the same question. So, how do you actually get there? Great insight, but how? This section is the answer. The practice comes from a Vedic technique called Pratipaksha Bhavana from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. The literal translation is cultivating the opposite. But I want to be precise about what that means, because it is almost always misread as positive thinking, which it is not. Pratipaksha Bhavana is not about replacing a negative thought with a positive one. It is about interrupting the momentum of the raga dvesha loop by deliberately introducing a countercurrent. The mechanism is physiological. You are using the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain capable of deliberate attention, to interrupt the default mode network's self-referential spin. You're not arguing with the loop, you're redirecting the current. The 5-minute protocol works like this. Step 1: sit down, close your eyes, and name the loop. Not analyze it, name it. I'm grasping for X, or I'm avoiding Y. One sentence. Specific. This activates the prefrontal cortex and begins to create distance from the DMN spin. 20 seconds. Step 2: drop into the body. Scan from the top of your head to the base of your spine and find where the loop lives physically. Tight chest, contracted throat, heavy shoulders. Don't fix it, just locate it. 30 seconds. Step 3: this is the Pratipaksha move. Ask, what is actually true about this moment right now, independent of the story? Not what you want to be true, not the positive reframe, what is actually factually present. The chair under you, the air in your lungs, the fact that you are in this second intact. This is not toxic positivity. This is a factual countercurrent to a narrative that is almost always about a future that hasn't happened or a past that is over. 90 seconds. Step 4: return to the sensation you found in step 2. Notice if it has shifted, even slightly. You're not trying to make it disappear. You're practicing being with it without the narrative layer on top. 90 seconds. Step 5: open your eyes. Write one sentence. What did I notice? Not what you felt. What you noticed. The observer framing matters. It trains the witness, which is the Vedic antidote to avidya. By day 7 of running this daily, most people report one specific shift. The loop still fires, but there is a half second of space before they are inside it. That half second is everything. That is the gap between stimulus and response that Viktor Frankl described from inside a concentration camp. The Gita calls that gap viveka, discernment. It is the beginning of freedom, not as a philosophy, but as a lived experience in your nervous system. The root cause of suffering is not the world coming at you. It is the unexamined loop responding to the world on your behalf. 5 minutes a day begins to put you back in the seat. That half-second gap is real and it is trainable, but for some people, especially if the loop has been running for years, the 5-minute practice surfaces something that needs more than a daily protocol. If you have tried versions of this on your own, meditation, therapy, reading, and you still find yourself back inside the spiral, unable to close the gap between understanding and actually feeling different, the fastest move is a direct conversation. I do free 30-minute calls, no pitch, no agenda, just a focused look at where specifically the loop is strongest for you and what the clearest next step is. You will walk away from that call with a concrete direction, whether we ever work together or not. The link to book is in the description at dailymindreset.com/consultation. If you have been the person in the comment thread asking, but how? This call is built for you. Subscribe if you want the next video the moment it drops, because the next one goes deeper into the Vedic model of the witness and why most meditation practices never get you there. Tell me in the comments, when you run the loop naming exercise, is it raga pulling you towards something or dvesha pushing something away?